Start. Okay, so welcome everybody. Good evening on this nice Sunday evening. At least it's gloomy in Bangalore, but I hope it's sunnier wherever else you are. So today we have a very special speaker who's joined us, and we are very thankful for his time. Jitendra Solanki is joining us today to primarily talk about financial planning, right? Now, I know a lot of us are concerned about planning for the future, ensuring that there's financial security for our children, not just for the immediate future, but also beyond. So this session is the first in a series of 2 sessions that we're going to have to address those questions and also hear about how to plan well for our children. So today's session predominantly is going to be about financial planning. We're going to have another session by Mr. Solanki at a future date, where we're going to predominantly focus on the legal part, right? And we split this into 2 sessions so that it's not too much information at the same time, and we get time to process information that he's going to share with us in today's session, think through it, maybe come up with questions and clarifications for the next session, right? And obviously we'll share Mr. Solanki's contacts with all of you if you would like to engage with him and work with him one-on-one going forward. Before I hand over to Mr. Solanki, just a very quick introduction about him. Mr. Solanki is a financial planning expert, and interestingly, he's very, very passionate about helping special needs children families in removing anxiety towards special needs financial planning, right? Very, very specific to our needs. And his goal is to bring families like a sense of empowerment, so that they're able to provide for their loved ones and to the whole family. And in fact, that's the mission of Plan Special Needs, which Mr. Solanki has started exclusively for families with special needs children. You can actually go and sign up for an ebook where you can get more information. Mr. Solanki is also the author of a very interesting book called Financial Planning for Families Having Children with Special Needs, which is also available on Amazon, which you can go and buy and read through it, right? So in addition to this, Mr. Solanki is a SEBI registered investment advisor. He's based out of Ghaziabad in UP, and has earned the much respected professional designation of CFP, which is Certified Financial Planner, and Chartered Trust and Estate Planner, right? Interestingly, he's a postgraduate from IIT Roorkee. It's very interesting because I've always heard that the best finance people are engineers. So it's very interesting to see that. Maybe Mr. Solanki can tell us a bit about that. He's also the founder and director of Special Needs Estate Planners, which is an estate planning firm working exclusively with special needs children families on will, trust, and other legal aspects, right? So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Solanki. Solanki, I hope I haven't missed anything. If I have, please do cover that, and then you can get started. So the way we'll do this session is you can get started and share some insight. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session where we'll open up to all the attendees. And as I mentioned, we're going to have another session with Mr. Solanki where if you're unable to ask any questions you have today, or as a follow-up to today's conversations, you can have it at any point in time, right? So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Solanki. Mr. Solanki, you can get started and also share your screen if needed. You have the right.
Right.
I don't think we can hear him. Can everybody
Yeah, I
else
think
hear?
he's going to unmute himself.
1 second. Yeah. Right. You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you. So let's start with the. Okay. So I'm going to talk on special needs financial planning, right? So financial planning, we all know there's so much written on financial planning. We can read articles almost weekly on a daily basis. We do, hear so much of TV shows focusing on financial planning. But special needs financial planning, that is a financial planning when you have a child with special needs, how it is different. What do you do something differently, or what are the challenges, what are the issues you address, and how you can actually go about preparing a financial plan for your family uh, along with a special need child lifelong care. So much of this introduction has been given by Vishnu, so I'm not going to go it again, but just for information, so there are two more partners with my organizations. Dr. Shweta Solanki, she is a chief consultant at Plan Special Needs and also one of the directors of Special Need Estate Planners Private Limited. Now, she is a disability expert with 15 years of work experience. And then we have Shilpa Wagh, who is also a consultant with both our organizations. Okay, so what is the objective? Why we are meeting today? What I am going to present is we'll understand about special needs financial planning. What is it actually and what it should cover? I'm going to talk about 5 building blocks of special need planning, 5 areas on which the complete financial planning for a family rests upon. And I'm going to focus specifically on retirement planning because this is an area where we are seeing most of the families we interact, especially who are on the verge of retirement, that this area has been left unplanned, delayed, or maybe missed out because the lack of advice or the resources. So whatever is the reason, but retirement planning, even in traditional planning, also retirement planning is I think one of the critical element of financial planning. Now, I'll start with what is the risk if you do not plan, what actually happens. So the one is the financial planning and the other is the legal aspect. Surely there are impact on the legal aspects. There are certain decisions which should be made. If you do not made, probably those will be made by the law itself, like appointment of guardian for children, how much of your estate will go to your loved ones, how much they will inherit in what ratio. If you do not decide, then it would be decision which will be taken by somebody else. Now, who can be? That can be a court, that can be a a legal way. With no plan in place. So if you do not plan, then guardian and trustees will always find difficult in managing both financial and emotional needs of your child. And the last, the money might just run out. So there is an impact on our life when we missed financial planning, especially in the initial years. Though we always say that financial planning, whenever you start at whatever age, the financial planning start from there. But it has an impact when you delay financial planning or you miss financial planning in the initial years of life. Now, with a special need child to care, there are impact on the legal aspects also if you miss planning both the financial and legal. But today I'm going to focus more on financial planning, that is special needs planning. Now, for a financial life plan for a family, now it revolves around 3 planning areas. Plan for your own retirement, for parents' retirement, plan for special needs child future, and plan for sibling future if there is a sibling. Now, these are the 3 areas of complete financial life plan of a family who have a special need child to care. And these are 3 areas where you have to focus on when you are planning for the future. Now, what is exactly special needs planning? Now, it's a roadmap. See, financial planning is never a product which can be sold to you. It's a roadmap you are drawing. And in a special needs planning, you integrate traditional planning with your family unique requirement. Now, what is traditional planning? Like, buying a house, buying a car, or for any other goals. These are common goals we see in a traditional planning. But you, as a parent of a special need child, you have a unique requirement, and that is special need child care. So when you draw a roadmap for your family, you draw a roadmap for you plan, you do a traditional planning, plan for your retirement, plan for sibling future, his education, his retirement. You plan for special need child future, and you integrate these two to bring a complete roadmap for your family. That's complete the special needs planning. In your special needs planning, both financial and legal strategy has to integrate with your child requirement. Whatever financial, in a traditional planning, a will might be the, I would say, the best solution for the legal aspect, especially after your lifetime. But that's not with when you have a special need child. A will may be only the starting point. You have other legal aspects to care. So whenever you're drawing a roadmap in a special need planning, both financial and legal strategy, they has to integrate with each other, and they both need to cover your child requirement along with yours. Then only the special need planning is complete. And will, trust, guardianship, these are the three main critical elements or aspect of your life. And lastly, in special needs planning, you actually define your vision for your loved one's life. Now, generally, we have in mind that this is what I want for my child. But how many of us really pen down that vision and share with others that this is my vision for my child, and this is what I want from you to take care of my child? So when you are creating a special needs plan for your family, you are defining your vision also. Because when you are doing a financial plan, you are identifying the requirements, and within the requirements, you are creating a solution which you want for your child. So this is special needs planning. In overall, it's a roadmap where you are integrating your requirements, your planning with your special child planning. Now, coming to financial planning, as I said, financial planning is not a product which can be sold to you, and you can just sit down and rest. It's a dynamic process. Financial planning in itself is a process. So you lay down a process of managing your family financial requirements. Now, it's a dynamic process because when you review periodically, there would be changes in your life. There would be life goals. There would be changes in goals. We will understand about how these life goal changes. So you accommodate these life goals and ensure that whatever resources you have, you can optimize those resources, and you can manage your finances more efficiently. And the main objective of financial planning is to achieve financial security for you, your child, and your family. That's the main objective of undergoing a financial planning process or following a financial planning approach. Now, what are the elements of financial planning? What do you actually cover? Now, why I'm bringing out these elements? Because many a times when families are doing financial planning, so it's like, I have done my investment, my financial planning is complete. I have bought my life insurance, my financial planning for family is complete. So it's important that we understand what are the elements of financial planning, what are the areas we have to cover when we are doing financial planning. Cash and debt management. So how do you manage your cash flows? What is coming in, what is coming out, you need to be aware of. Debt management is managing your borrowings. The debt, the loan you take, whether it is enough, whether it is within your means, how you're going to repay. So your debt management has to be efficient. So financial planning covers cash flow and debt management. Income tax planning. Now, income tax, generally we look at income tax from when we are earning an income. So paying income tax at that, how we can save that. But also look at that income tax also has to be, your investment has to be tax efficient. So income tax has to be looked at when you are investing your money. So how you do income, this income tax planning, that is covered in financial planning. Education, childcare funding strategies. Retirement planning is one of the most important element of financial planning. Employee benefit plan analysis, that is for salaried individuals. What are the employer benefits you are getting? How you optimize those employer benefit? So doing an analysis of that. Insurance and risk management, how you can cover risk in life. There are personal risks, there are investment risks. How you can cover those risks, with what kind of an insurance you should have, that is covered in financial planning. Asset allocation and investment management, how do you invest your money? What asset allocation approach you should follow. Estate planning and strategies. Now, what after you? So that planning is done in estate planning. Business succession plan, somebody has running a business, who is going to succeed that business, how it is going to transfer to next generation. So a succession planning for your business, and special needs planning. Now these are the elements of financial planning. So whenever you do financial planning, and when you have these elements in front of you, you can check whether I have covered all my elements of my financial plan. And when you draw a financial plan for your family, it should come out, all these elements should come out in your financial plan. So there should be a cash flow strategy, there should be a debt management strategy, there should be an income tax planning strategy, there should be childcare funding strategies, your retirement planning should be covered, your employer benefit should be analyzed, insurance risk management should be covered, what kind of an insurance you should buy, you should be knowing. Asset allocation and investment management strategies should be drawn, estate planning strategies should be drawn, business succession planning have been done, and lastly the special needs planning should be covered. These are the elements of financial planning. Now generally financial planning, you can follow a 6-step process, and the first one is goal setting. So identifying your destination, where you have to reach. Now when I say goal setting, it means identifying the monetary requirement. Whatever goals you have set in your life, it has to be identified on the monetary front. So how much you need for reaching that goal? Now it may be setting up a business, it may be buying a house, it may be your retirement, or it may be any other goal. So the first aspect is goal setting, identifying your goals. The second is analyzing your current financial situation. Where do you stand today? You have identified your destination, but you need to analyze where you stand today. And when you uh, follow this first and second step, the third step come out from it. Analyzing pitfalls, what are the gaps? You have set your goals, you know where do you stand today. Now where are the gaps in reaching those goals? And when you analyze these pitfalls, you actually design strategies to meet your financial goals. So if there are gaps, you fulfill those gaps. You identify how I can fill these gaps. It may be the savings required, it may be adjustment of your cash flows, it may be making your investments, it may be buying life insurance. So you design strategies to fulfill the gap which arises because when you have analyzed, when you have done first, second, and third steps. And when you design strategies, you finally implement the plan. So you buy life insurance, you start investing your money, and you implement other aspects of your plan. And then you review the plan periodically, so that tomorrow whatever changes in life is coming which has a financial impact on your life, you can accommodate in your financial plan and revise your financial planning strategies. This is a 6-step financial planning process. Now we will talk of 5 building blocks of special needs planning: preparing a budget, estimating lifetime cost, set goals, set the safety net, and retirement planning. These are the 5 building blocks. Why I say building blocks? Because these are the 5 areas of financial planning for a family who have a special need child to care. And if you can address these 5 areas, you can complete your comprehensive financial planning for your family. So the first building block is preparing a budget, and it is the basis of any financial planning. Preparing a budget, following a budget, monitoring your expenses, that becomes basis of any financial planning approach you take. Now, when you prepare a budget, largely as a family, even we have a special need child to care, we always follow a family budget. But we have analyzed and we have identified that you need to create a separate budget for special need child. That means you need to manage expenses for your child separately from the family budget. Why it is important, we will look at at the second element when we identify the lifetime care cost. But even then also, when you are creating a separate budget for the child, you can actually identify and manage expenses more efficiently. Now, how you can create a separate budget? So let me show you a chart. This chart we created, you will also find it in my book. Vishnu, can you see the Excel screen?
Not yet. I think you need to stop
Okay.
sharing and then share again. Then it'll
Okay.
come up.
Okay. Okay. Now, this
Yes, we can
is
see
a
this.
special need child expense worksheet. It has expenses only related to the child. This is not a family expenses. So there are, now what we did, we divided into 5 headings. So one is living expenses, house rent, utilities, day-to-day care, domestic help, driver expenses, child personal needs, food, outings, clothing, other expenses, schooling costs, transportation, clothing, coaching, books, cost for special equipments if required. So that it covers health needs, doctor visit, therapies, medicine, transportation, social, recreational, entertainment, vacation, any membership, miscellaneous like insurance premium. Now, this is an expense sheet only for the child. And if you look at this expense sheet, it covers very much in detail now, month on month or year on year, how much you are spending on your child care. We will look at why this is important. Now, the second to it is the family expense. When you have identified the family budget, the expense for special need child, how do you include in the family budget? So we will look at it also. Now, this is a common family expense worksheet. Okay, the family budget we all maintain. So there are fixed variable expenses, living expenses, में groceries, domestic help, electricity, conveyance, transportation. You can use any expense chart. They are freely available on Google. You can download any Excel. You can create your own family expense chart. We created in this manner: children expenses, premiums, EMI outgo. So it give your family expenses. So there are fixed expenses, variable expenses, and then there are discretionary expenses, the expenses which you would not be spending month on month, but you are, and also you are not aware of how much you are spending. Only after monitoring it, you are able to know that this is what you spend on month. So there would be discretionary expenses. So there are total discretionary expenses, total family expense, and when you include your special child expenses, you get your total family expenses. So there are two separate budgeting which is being followed. One is separate only for special child, and second is your total family expense. So create a separate budget, include all probable expenses such as support equipment cost, etc. We have seen if you are creating budget for the first time, you can start with some assumptions and you monitor it for few months, and then you will be able to come to some accurate figure how much you are spending on child. Monitor expenses for few months to bring accuracy in expenses. Accommodate changes in budget with child life stages. Now this expense sheet which I have shown you for the child, this is going to change with as the child is growing up. In the initial years, it might change frequently because the expenses you are not well aware of. Towards the adult phase of the child, these expenses become somewhat constant, okay, with the areas we have covered. So when you are following it, it is easy for you to accommodate how these changes is affecting your family budget. So that's how you follow a expense separately for the child and your family expense. And that is important because it will also help you to know, as I said, how much you are spending on child. And we have done financial planning for few families, and we were able to make changes in the special child expenses, and bring family to a reasonable level of expenses within their financial planning. Because when they approached us in the initial years, the expenses were too high. In fact, they were in negative cash flows, but we work around, and we were able to help families. After a few years, they were able to come in a positive cash flows. So these, unless and until you know that how much I'm spending, it is very difficult to analyze where I can make adjustment in my cash flows. Like much you do in your family budget, similarly you have to do it for special child. But the second importance of it, that how much you need for your special child care, you can identify that only when you are following a separate budget. So we come to estimating the lifetime cost. That is a building block too. You should be knowing how much I need for my special child. And how you can do that: first is identifying the income sources. What income can come to the special child? Parents and special need child income, it can be salary, business, rental. Parents income post retirement, there might be government schemes. Friends, family, relative supports can come in, there might be inheritance coming. Other can be pension or annuity income, insurance benefit. So if you look at the chart, we have identified now in future directly to the child. So how this income is coming to the special child, that we have to identify. So when we are going to work out the corpus, we will need that what income will come to the child now and in the future also. We are going to understand through a case study how actually you calculate this. So identify, once you have identified the income sources, identify the child expenses, and the expense chart is the same which I have shown earlier. That's how you identify the separately the special child expenses, and this is where it is going to help you. Now, what are the factors to consider? Include all probable expenses. If the child is minor, then include future cost which may arise. Determine today's value of all expenses arising in future. If any expense is unclear, monitor it for few months and account for inflation. Now, these are some of the factors to consider. Now, why we say inflation? Inflation is an important element of all our finances. And just to show you, a 20,000 per month expense can rise up to 1.62 lakh per month in 30 years when we take a 7% inflation. Now, inflation for special child might be higher than this because there are medical expenses involved. But whenever you are identifying the cost, the future expenses, inflation has to be factored in. Now, there are certain assumptions whenever you identify, whenever you do financial planning, there are certain assumptions you take. And because of these assumptions, the financial planning has to be a periodic review process, because these assumptions can change tomorrow. And if they change any of these, you need to accommodate it. Like life expectancy of your child, you're going to assume. Income growth is an assumption. How your income is going to grow, 8%, 10%, 7%, that we assume. Inflation is also an assumption. Today we are taking 7%, 8%. Tomorrow, in the future, inflation might come down. There may be other factors also. Rate of return on corpus. Now, you do not get a fixed rate of return. So rate of return is also assumed. You are making that assumption. And also the taxes. What taxes? You might be at a lower tax slab today, and tomorrow you might reach to a higher tax slab. So whatever tax you assume on your investment income, that is an assumption. And because of these assumptions, the financial planning exercise or financial planning approach you take, they have to be reviewed periodically and accommodate these changes. So let's understand through a case study, and I'm going to show case study now also in retirement planning also. It will help you understand minutely how you actually estimate the lifetime cost. So Vicky, 5 years old, is a special need child. Gaurav, age 37 years, wish to estimate corpus required for his lifetime care. We assume that Vicky life expectancy is going to be near 70 years. An average inflation of 7% is assumed for increase in expenses year on year. Assuming a growth of 8% on the corpus. So that's the case study. Now, Vicky, the special child is 5 years old. This is Vicky's expenses. Now, this is where I illustrated that why you need to manage these expenses separately, why you need to follow a separate expense chart. Now, the way we have identified Vicky expenses separately, similar way you can identify your child expenses separately. In this case study, Vicky expense comes to 38,500 monthly. So 4,62,000 is the yearly expense. Now, there are two ways to identify corpus. Why I have brought in these two ways, I'll illustrate that also. One is perpetual annuity method and second is inflation adjusted corpus. Now, what is perpetual annuity method? Now, a perpetual annuity method is more simplistic method that suppose this 4,62,000 is the perpetual income which needs to be generated. Then what is the corpus required? So, for example, in this case study, if a 3% return we assume, then 1.54 corpus, 1.54 crore is the corpus Gaurav requires. But if he can generate a 5% return, 92 lakh 40,000 is the corpus required, and this 4,62,000 he would be able to generate a lifelong income on that. Now, why this perpetual annuity method is coming? Some of the factors. One, it is the easiest method. So easiest method, put simple, it's like a simple rate of interest. I am putting in my FD. So I put 92 lakh in my FD, it generate a 5% return. I can generate a 4,62,000 income yearly towards my child for his lifetime. It's the easiest method to follow, but inflation is not factored in here. Good to treat as the bare minimum corpus required. Why this perpetual annuity method comes in is because that's the bare minimum corpus you need. Any corpus below this, you have a huge shortfall for your child financials. If you follow this method, you need to review it every 3-4 years so that you can factor in the inflation. As I said, this method only helps you to avoid facing a huge shortfall. For that reason, this perpetual annuity methods comes in. Many a times also, your inflation adjusted corpus, the actual corpus might be too higher, and families feel that this is impossible to generate. So where this money would come in? Now, for that reason, this perpetual annuity method can be followed, and it can be reviewed periodically to ensure that you can factor in the changes. So, one second. Now, this is the actual corpus required for Vicky. So today, 5 years, life expectancy 75, we assume the lifetime year 70 years. The total corpus required by Gaurav in actual for Vicky's lifelong care is 2.38 crore. Now, this is the actual corpus. This factor is the inflation. Now, what are the factors to consider when we are following an inflation adjusted corpus approach? Life expectancy can be higher or lower. Difficult to estimate accurate expenses in early years of child life, especially during the minority. Is very difficult to estimate what are actual expenses going to be. Inflation for special need child is higher. It can be higher. I have assumed a 7% inflation. We can take 7%, 10% for medical, 7% for general expenses. That way also it can be done. Most investment returns are variable. So investment returns are variable. I assumed 8%. You can get up to 9%, or it can be 7%. So these are variables which you assume when you are calculating the corpus. But two ways we have highlighted. One is perpetual annuity and the second is inflation adjusted corpus. Whatever life stage you are, you need to have the amount of corpus between these two estimations. If your corpus is below perpetual annuity, you might face a huge shortfall. If you are not able to accumulate as of now the inflation adjusted corpus, at least follow the perpetual annuity method and ensure that you have that bare minimum corpus always running with you, which can ensure the special need child care. There are other tools where you can create the corpus, especially after your lifetime. So that's how you estimate the lifetime care cost. Now, what is the lifetime care cost? Put simply, if I am not there tomorrow, this is the money I need to leave behind, which will take care of my child expenses for his lifetime. Now, assumptions are actual expenses, the expenses probably charged by the residential care. These are the ways where you can assume what is the money you might require for your child care in the lifelong. As I said, these are assumptions, and financial planning is not a one-time exercise of your life. In fact, the approach has to be reviewed on an yearly basis. Third building blocks is setting goals. Without setting goals, it's very difficult to plan for the future. Now, generally, how do you measure traditional goals? Say, suppose you need to buy a car in 1 year, it becomes a short-term goal. You want to buy a house in 5 years, it becomes a medium-term goal. Child education, marriage, your own retirement becomes a long-term goal. Now, this is how do you measure traditional goals? Now, the difficult aspect is that how do you measure goals for your special need child, because the requirement is lifelong and it's almost constant. You require a monthly income. So how do you plan for your special need child goals? In the way you plan for traditional goals, similar way you can plan for your special need child goals. Because when you are going to identify goals, then only you are going to make your investments. Your investment has to link with the horizon of your goals. So immediate expenses, like expenses for the next 2-3 years, becomes your short-term goal. Expenses up to 5 to 7 years becomes your medium-term goals, and expenses beyond 7 to 10 years becomes your long-term goals. Put simply, the expenses beyond 7 to 10 years is the money which you are not going to utilize now. It is going to be utilized only after 7 to 10 years. Similarly, the other expenses, and add any additional support. For example, if the child is going to live in the same house and the modification has to be done. Now, this modification will be done after 7 years. It adds to your long-term goal. But if it is going to be done, say in the next 4 years, it might add up to medium-term goal. Maybe in the next year, it is your short-term goal. So the way you define your traditional goals, the similar manner you can define your child goals related to his expenses, because in your child care, what is the major aspect is the expenses. And this is how you set goals for your complete family, for both traditional goals and for your special child goals. Now, how do you actually set special child goals? Because I have said, that you can take up the expenses, but one of the important way to identify the goals for your special child, because there might be other expenses that would be also coming in. There might be legal expenses, there might be other expenses. How do you set goals and how you understand this? Generally, a timeline like this help you understand your special child goals. Now, this is a life stage of a special need child. We have drawn this timeline. You will also find this in my book. Now, this is the basis of all planning we do. What we did, we divided child life into 5 stages. First stage is the minority. Second stage is the adult living at home. Third stage is adult living in external living environment like a residential care. Stage 4, first parent death. Stage 5, second parent death, and then the child lifetime. Now, if you look at every stage, there are issues to address. Like when the child is in minority, so there is diagnosis, early intervention, counseling, therapies. The focus of parent is more on these aspects. The moment child moves to an adult phase, there is other requirements which will come up, like legal guardianship, funding child care, his residential needs would come up. Similarly, if the child is moving to an external living environment, then child adaptability to their residential facilities, the financial support to the residential care, your own retirement will come in. First parent death, the trust administration, the will execution. Second parent death, the complete management of the financial to the trust, and the final legacy distribution after the end of child life. So when you draw this timeline, you actually point out the issues, the concern you will face in your child life, at what life stage it can come. I have drawn this timeline. In general, when we draw this timeline, we actually bring down the age also. Whatever age your child is today, for example, he's 5 years of age, then we can draw this timeline that at what age what is the age of your child when you are going to retire? So what are the issues you will have to address? So when you bring out the age of parents and plus the age of child in this timeline, you actually understand the life stages of your child, and identifying issues, concerns, setting goals becomes much more easier. The fourth building block is safety net. What safety net you can plan for your child? Now, in general, there are three important safety net. The most important safety net which needs to be followed and which every parent should have is life, health, and disability. These are the three most important safety net for your family. Let's come to start with health insurance. Now, parents needs to cover adequately. Employer insurance is not enough. Generally, employer insurance is linked to your designations. Also, employer insurance is there till you are employed. Tomorrow, if you leave job, employer insurance would not be there. Now, relying on employer insurance has a disadvantage that when you leave job in the later years of life, you will need health insurance at that point of time. But if you start a new health insurance at that age, probably you would have developed some health issues. Availing a health insurance becomes critical or become difficult. So employer insurance is not enough for covering health for your health issues adequately. Insurance for the child has many limitations today, though this is changing. If viable, always create a health fund. Now, as I said, the other parts is okay for parents. You can have a health insurance, an adequate health insurance. You can create a health fund. But what happens for a special child? And the health insurance, health fund is now there is no definition of the amount of coverage you should have in a health fund, because the way we see the treatment cost today, even a 20 lakh coverage, can be less sometimes. So it is difficult to estimate that amount, and that's why today if you see what is the adequate health insurance policy which is being sold by companies today, and companies type of product change with the situation. Today in metro cities 30 lakhs has become a standard coverage you need to take, and so you see from all companies 5 plus 25 policy is being sold at the maximum. 5 lakh basic plan and 25 lakh top up plan. So those are definition of the amount of adequate coverage changes along with the kind of the cost you see in the hospitals. But for special need child, the drawback was that health insurance was not available. But 1st October 2020, IRDA issued a list of treatment that need to be mandatorily covered by all insurance. And they increased the scope of coverage of all health insurance policies. Behavior, neurodevelopment disorders, genetic disease and disorders have been included in health insurance now. Though it may take some time for companies to implement, there are certain gray areas they want to clear, but we are seeing the scope of health insurance for special children's which is being increased now. So there are specific policies for autism. The Down syndrome has started getting coverage. There are other disabilities, they have started getting coverage. The treatment of mental illness have started. So health insurance landscape is changing. It will change in the future, and you would be able to get health insurance for your special child. The second safety net is the life insurance, and this is one of the important tool, I would say, to plan or to have a financial protection for your family, including your special child. Whenever you are taking a life insurance, you have to identify your actual financial requirements. Don't go on those thumb rules, because thumb rules will not fit into your requirement. You have a requirements beyond traditional family requirements. So that's why identify your actual financial requirement. What do you need for your future? Your life insurance coverage should cover your child lifetime care cost. Both parents need life insurance coverage. See, there are financial implications on both parents. Okay, suppose the second parent is taking care 24/7 for the child and not working, right? If tomorrow the parent is not there, then the first parent will have to make adjustment in his life. The surviving parent, he can't leave his job and make those adjustments. So he will employ staff for the child care. So the expenses are going to increase. So beyond those emotional aspects, there is a financial implication. And that's why I say both parents need life insurance coverage. Avail only term insurance. There is no other insurance policy which can give you adequate insurance for your child care, for covering your lifetime child care cost. There is no other insurance apart from term insurance. You go and buy, for example, in the case study we saw, Gaurav needs a 2.38 crore corpus. Suppose he has only 1 crore of assets accumulated. He want to protect that 1.38 crore. So he go and buy a life insurance policy. Now, if he buy a cash value policy, the premium of that is going to be beyond his means. But if he take a term insurance policy, the premium of that is well within his means, and he can cover his child financial requirement adequately with this life insurance. Specific policies are not available today, and also this becomes a very important estate for instant funding of the trust after you. You are going to, if you do not have accumulate assets today, you're going to accumulate assets in the future. Now that may be 10 years, that may be 20 years. What happens today, where you can provide that financial protection? If you form the trust, how the trust is going to be funded if something happens to the parents today? Life insurance is one important tool which can give that instant funding to the trust after your lifetime. Even in later years of lifetime, the life insurance can be an important tool. Now, one of the drawback of term insurance was that it was only available to 60-70 years of age. But now you see term insurance available up to 100 years of age also. So you have now provision where you can cover your child lifetime care cost even in your later years of life through life insurance. So after your lifetime, this life insurance will fund your child care cost for whatever life insurance coverage you have taken, and you can fill that gap. So we look at how do you actually calculate the life insurance requirement for your family. So in this case, let's see the case study. Gaurav had a home loan of 23 lakh. He need to buy a house where the child is going to live. He need 50 lakh. His family would need 50 lakh. The corpus for regular expenses, 4,62,000 he requires for Vicky regular expenses. Now 2.38 crore he need only for Vicky expenses today, but he need to make provision for settling this home loan plus house purchase of 50 lakh. He need to provide that to his family. So actual life insurance coverage he need is 3.1 crore. He has accumulated asset of 65 lakh, which can meet some of this requirement to 2.46 or 2.5 crore life insurance he need to buy to fill this gap. That's how you calculate your life insurance requirement in actual, not through any thumb rules where it says, 10 times or 20 times of your income. So when identifying coverage, this is a checklist. How do you actually identify the life insurance coverage? Look at what is the immediate corpus required. What can be the requirement for immediate corpus? Like emergency reserves be needed immediately. Loans and liabilities have to be repaid. Legal expenses have to be covered. For example, the trust have to be formed. The other aspects have to be taken care. Lifetime income has to be generated. Month-on-month living expenses have to be covered. Child lifetime care costs have to be covered. Regular expenses for hiring housemaid, servant, for self or child care, for surviving spouse or child care would be needed. Fees for guardianship, legal, other professions such as trustees. It might be the element of immediate corpus which might be needed by your family. There will be future requirements like child care for older age of surviving spouse, retirement expenses of a surviving spouse, and if sibling, then expenses for his or her education and marriage. Now this might come in the future, so maybe 15 years, 20 years down the line. So when you identify a life insurance coverage for your family, you need to calculate it on the basis of your actual requirement, which should also cover your child lifetime care cost. The third aspect is disability insurance. Now, I'm not talking about disability insurance with respect to child, but If you are temporary or permanently disabled, then how you going to fulfill the financial requirement? Because term insurance will not come into picture. Their disability insurance helps. And in India, disability insurances are available generally through accidental insurance policies. They can pay you a lump sum amount, or they can pay you a monthly payout for a few years. We had a policy from Tata Insurance where they were paying monthly payout for 15, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But disability insurance is the only insurance which can cover if you are temporary or permanently disabled. Your income stops, then what? Life insurance won't come into picture. Till the time you settle down in your family, you make a provision, you need your expenses to to be incurred, and disability insurance helps you in that matter. So when identifying a disability insurance, choosing a disability insurance, look at what kind of benefits it can give. For how long? Days, weeks, and years. What is the waiting period? Benefit period, how long? Days, weeks, and years. Definition of disability. So is it comprehensive, and what exclude specifically related to occupation? So whenever you go and buy a accidental insurance policies, there are exclusion related to occupation also. So like, for a pilot, generally accidental insurance policies are not available. Does it cover temporary partial disability, and what defines it? What is the premium you're going to pay? And can you cover spouse or siblings also in the same policy? Yes, there are policies where all the family members can be covered in the same policy. So choose a disability insurance policy which is comprehensive enough. Now, when you take a term insurance, you also get some riders along with that. There is an accidental ADDB rider, which is related to accidental disability. There is a critical illness rider. So these are the riders which covers these objectives, but to a certain extent. So there is a limitation of how much coverage you can take in a rider. But always look at a comprehensive policy, because there you can get a comprehensive definition, there you can get a comprehensive coverage. So life, health, disability are the three important pillars of safety net which every family should have, which will provide protection to your special child even after your lifetime. Other insurances, home, car, business. So car, so it's mandatory, so it's automatically you have to take an insurance. There is no way, but there anywhere you see there can be a financial implication for your family, it should be covered. So like if you own a business, so you should have an insurance which can cover the risk of owning a business. Your home, you should have an insurance which can cover your home, the home content, from theft, burglary, and any other reasons. So whatever, wherever you can see there can be a financial implication, those proper protection should be taken. I'm not saying all the insurance should be bought, but generally most life, health, disability, every family should have. Other than this, based on your family situation, you can take insurances. The next is investment planning. So how do you make investments? Now generally, investment planning is done that we are making any investment. So if, for example, we want to invest in mutual funds, so we go and buy a scheme. But your investment planning is also on planning. It should be a planning how you're going to make those investments. Now, 4th step, review your existing investment, what all investment you have today. Take a personal risk assessment. When I say personal risk assessment, now there are different investment products. For example, equities, you want to invest in equities. You take your own assessment, how much you can tolerate that volatility in the product, whether 10%, 20%. If your investment falls 20%, would you be comfortable still continuing with it? So do a personal risk assessment. Create an investment policy. An investment policy is like, if I am investing for the long term, I am not going to invest in these products. I am going to invest in the long term. And when I am investing in the long term, this is how I'm going to manage my investment. So you create your own personal investment policy and follow an asset allocation approach. Asset allocation is not diversifying your investment into different investment avenues. So this is how you should be doing your investment planning. and it should cover your special child goals also. Now, goal-based investment is generally that every investment is linked with certain goal. Whatever investment you do will be linked. Child education, marriage, your retirement, your goal investment should be linked. Buying a house, buying every investment you have an objective to meet. If you do not link it with goal, the
Jitendra, I think there's some lag in your audio and video. Not sure if it's your internet connection, but we just, if you could go back to the previous slide, I think we kind of lost you during the second part of it.
Okay. So investment planning, right?
No, this was fine. The next one.
Okay. Okay, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is the previous one I have talked about, the goal-based investment. That is, every investment you do should be linked to your goal. Because if you do not link to your goal, what is the criteria you will follow? And the return becomes the criteria. And when return becomes the criteria, there is no limit on the returns. Then you chase returns. And when you chase return, you make mistakes. So all your investments should be linked with your goal. That means any investment you should do have an objective to meet. So traditional goals, similarly, you set up special child goals and then make your investment. So immediate expenses, you will find a short-term avenue. Expenses up to 5 to 7 years, you will find an investment avenue. Long-term goals, you will take an asset allocation approach and see, how you can meet your long-term goals and any additional support. So identify goals and then link your investment with these goals. Now, in general, we advise following a bucketing strategy that works very well, especially with families who've got a special need child to care. What you need to in buckets and strategy that you divide your goals into separate buckets. So like bucket one, so for example, only your special child goal, the regular income for first 2 years become your bucket one. The income requirement for 3 to 5 years become a bucket two. The income requirement for 6 to 10 years become your bucket 3. Income requirement for post 10 years become your bucket 4. Any unexpected planned expenses or emergencies becomes your bucket 5. And now you choose your investment. Like bucket 1, it's only going to be liquid investment because it's the first 2 years you have to meet immediate expenses. So you can put into bank fixed deposit or very short-term mutual funds. Bucket 2, income requirement for 3 to 5. So you still have 3 years. You still have 4 years. So you can do a moderate conservative investment. Some portion 5-10% can go into growth asset. Bucket 3 is income requirement for 6 to 10 years. That means you will need this income only after 6-7 years. So you can have a moderate growth income investment. So you can take certain portion, or you can have products which have certain investment into growth asset and the other into debt. Bucket 4 is where you're going to utilize the money only after 10 years. Then you can have a investment, growth investment. You can invest into a product like equities. And bucket 5 again become a most liquid investment. You can identify more buckets with respect to your goals. So investing with bucketing strategy, would help in identifying the right investment avenues. When you do follow an asset allocation approach, so you take different percentage of investment into different asset classes. Now, these are certain model portfolios, not actually, are standards, but you can see the samples, how you create an asset allocation portfolio. For example, if you want a conservative approach, do not want to go into equities high, 10% can be into cash, 70% can be in debt, 15% can be in equity, 5% international equity. Come to a balanced approach. You have horizon, you want to take a balanced approach, you are comfortable with that. 5% invest into cash, 40% into debt, 35% into equity, 15 into international equity. So you can go 50% equity and 50% into other assets. Similarly, if you are aggressive, you have time horizon, you have a risk tolerance, high risk tolerance, you can go 70 to 80% into equity. So what portfolio you design for yourself is going to be based on your risk tolerance. But these are like, kind of model portfolios which are designed Or this is how you follow an asset allocation approach, that you invest into different asset classes and uh, invest for the long term. Now these are the approach for the long term, not for the short term, because short term we will have only specific investment, because you are not looking for growth, you are looking for protection of your capital, but with some decent returns. Now we come to building block 5, which is retirement planning. And this is one of the important element. Why? Because this has higher implication for your life, and retirement planning should be done much early in life. Generally, what it includes: your own retirement expenses for yourself in your retirement years, special child expenses, residential needs of child, where he's going to stay, especially in your old age, and what are the savings required. So special need childcare plan, cash flow requirement, what is the cash flow you will need, parents own retirement cash flow, other expenses, like they can be other expenses, gifting, traveling, you are traveling, for meeting your child or for holidays, those are the goals to be added, any health emergencies. So when you are planning your retirement, these are the elements which should be included. Now, what are the challenges we face when we are planning for retirement? There is high dependence on personal savings. So you are dependent on retirement planning for your personal savings, from your personal savings. Pension provisions are not adequate enough. When I say pension provisions, those kind of products which can give you enough pension, those are not adequate enough to meet your retirement goals. Absence of a good social security, we all know the longer life expectancy. So life expectancy is increasing. You're also the child also. So there is a higher probability of caring, for children and parents in the old age. I mean, up to a higher age. More options for your time. So you have your retirement years is going to be a long enough. So you need options how you want to spend the time. Children with special needs have a higher medical child raising cost over the long term. So the more longer is the life expectancy, more is the care cost requirement you have. So these are the challenges which you face for in your retirement years, and that's why we are saying the more longer horizon you have for planning your retirement, you better situation you will face, you will be able to accumulate a good corpus for your retirement years. What is the process you follow when you are doing a retirement planning, especially on the monetary requirement? Identify today expenses of the child, identify today expenses for the parents, estimate both generation expenses at parents retirement, identify the corpus needed at retirement, and evaluate saving options to accumulate the desired corpus. Evaluate any probabilities of any shortfall in meeting the retirement goal. What if you are not able to meet the retirement goal? What are the probabilities and how you're going to meet that shortfall? So let's understand through a case study. I will take the same case study. Vicky, 5-year-old, is special need child. Gaurav is 37 years, wish to estimate corpus required. Vicky life expectancy is 70 years, Gaurav 85 years. Gaurav wish to retire at 60 years of age. So he has 23 years to retire. An average inflation of 7% is assumed. So we are assuming average inflation of 7% instead of different inflation. And we assume that the corpus can grow at 8%. Now, either you can take 6% inflation or 7% corpus return, or you can take 7%, 8%. So the difference is generally 1%. First is identifying the current expenses. Vicky expenses we have identified separately before, that 4,62,000. But there is an expenses which is based on the today's expenses for both the parents. 4,08,000 is the annual expense which parents will require for their own expenses. Okay, so these two are the combined total expenses which has to be planned for for the retirement years. Corpus for Vicky expenses. Now, total annual expenses today is 462 lakh. What is the expenses in first year of Gaurav retirement? So the expense is going to grow. Today's 4,62,000 can become 21 lakh with 7% inflation in 23 years. Now, if those are the kind of expenses you are looking at, then for the next 42 years of lifetime for the child, the Gaurav will need around 7.64 CR of corpus. He would have some benefits at retirement. The actual corpus he will need for life, for child life at retirement is 6.55 crore. So the expenses are based on what are the expenses your child will have. Now, these expenses can come down. What we are estimating is a constant increase in expenses for the special child during the years. We can estimate on the base that tomorrow these expenses come down, or there might be some other income which would come to the child. So that will reduce the actual corpus you require for child. Then is the estimation for parents' expenses. 4,08,000 was today's requirement. So annual expense in the first year of retirement rises to 19 lakh. 4.33 crore is what Gaurav will require for his own retirement, for his and his spouse retirement years. So this is the financial requirement for Gaurav, which he has to accumulate in 23 years. That's why I said why this perpetual annuity method comes in, because when you calculate to inflation adjusted numbers are sometimes very high, because it is based on your lifestyle expenses. Now, for some family, for Gaurav, it is coming to 15 CR for total requirement. For some family, it might be just up to 6 CR or 7 CR. So based on what is your expenses today, the expenses in the retirement would be based on your today's expenses. So what is the savings required? So if the Gaurav wants to identify how much saving he should do, 6.5 CR is required for Vicky at retirement. If he do go with fixed contribution, he would need to start at 60,000 per month. But there is a strategy of that I can start with a lower amount and keep increasing my contribution as my savings increases. So he can start with 25,000 and keep increasing the contribution, say by 8%. And based on what returns you are able to generate, this requirement will come down. For example, if this requirement can generate 12% return, this requirement will come down from 25,000, it can come down to 20,000. Similarly, fixed contribution. Now, because Gaurav at 23 years of time, he can take that approach where he can invest into growth asset. Now, whether it is a balanced, aggressive, he can identify based on his personal risk tolerance, but he has that horizon where he can invest with a asset allocation approach, and he should invest into growth asset to get the desired return on his investment to accumulate the corpus. So while planning your retirement, identify the corpus needed at retirement. The corpus should include the child expenses. Evaluate probabilities of any shortfall in meeting the retirement goal. Adjust today cash flows if needed. So if you have time, you have horizon, you should adjust today cash flows if required and move money, more savings, more towards retirement. Prepare yourself for more working years that we advise to parents. Maximize employer retirement benefit. For salaried individual, retirement benefits can do wonders. They can create a good corpus in the long term. So maximize your employer retirement benefit. Evaluate the support after retirement. What support you will get post your retirement, you should evaluate. Evaluate residential need of the child, because that will decide your expenses also. For example, your child shift to a residential care in a smaller city. You would also like to shift to a smaller city along with the child. So your expenses will come down. So the child residential needs will also decide your expenses. If you stay in the metro, the child is staying separately, you might incur traveling expenses to meet the child. So that's why this question is important. Evaluate probabilities of relocation. What if you do not want to live in metro, or you would like to shift to a smaller city? Some retirement mistakes to avoid: relying on employer benefit. Never rely completely on employer benefit, be it insurance, be it any other aspect. Not maximizing contributions. Over investing in one asset class. As I said, investing, long-term investment is good if you can take an asset allocation approach. Over investing will always have a risk associated, and it also fall on families who wants to be too conservative. So they want everything to be in a fixed income assets. Now, in the long term, this can be a hindrance to accumulate the desired corpus. Not enough invested in growth asset, especially when you have time horizon on your side. Constant changes within the plan. Don't change the plan constantly. When you have a financial planning, when you have designed the financial planning, take that approach, just accommodate the changes, but do not change the plan frequently, especially the investment strategies. Heavy borrowing, loans, if you are more dependent on loans, that can put a hole in your savings in the later years of life. And cashing retirement corpus early in life, we have seen these common mistake where retirement corpus is utilized much early in life, especially those employer benefits like employer provident fund or any other benefit. Now that can do wonders if you can continue EPF for longer years. Okay, so I'm just touching on letter of intent for simply because it's one of the important element of for a special child family. Every family, and this is the first document we always advise that which is the first document you should create, and that's a letter of intent. So it's a guiding resource for the future caregivers, even within the spouse also you ever able to understand so much. Now what is a letter of intent? It's about your child life, about your child life, about your vision, about his care, how it should be done. So what is the content? So you write, so you it has information on family, about members, their history, your child living, daily routines, habits, clothes and food, your vision for lifestyle, residential need, what is the current residence, what is your chosen options, what is not going to work for the child, healthcare, medications, therapies, what did not work with respect to healthcare for the child, social activities, what he likes, what is the extracurricular activities is like, where does he like to go, education, the school, vocational classes, religious, the place of interest, his likes, his dislikes, and the final arrangement. So a letter of intent is kind of a guiding resource for the future caregivers, for the future trustees, and every parent should start with this letter of intent. You should create it, hand over to the people who are going to be involved in your childcare, so that they are able to understand about your child life, and they are able to understand about your vision for your child. So special need planning approach, rather than taking just approach for any kind of investment or insurance, take a planning approach, address issues, identify your resources, estimate the cost, choose professionals, create a plan, execute the legal plan, prepare a letter of intent, and monitor and update plan periodically. Golden rules, incorporate child personal needs, living arrangements, everything about child in the financial plan, review it periodically. Where will the child live? It's important and should be answered to include it in the financial plan, because the cost is going to be based on that. Then if viable, avoid giving assets to the child directly. We will address this in the estate planning, why I'm saying so. Discuss with your loved ones on what needs to be done if you die early. Pen down your will, form the trust, write a letter of intent, take educate life and health insurance, and seek professional help. But do not remain unplanned if you do not have expertise anywhere. So seek a professional help, but don't make don't keep things unplanned. Common mistakes. Now these are common mistakes: not declaring child disability in insurance schemes, not planning for contingencies, not planning for own incapacity to work. What if you are incapacitated? Then who's going to manage the child affairs? Failure to plan for long-term care expenses and planning everything through will is the starting point. Failure to create a trust, estate documents created but not reviewed for long time. Every document you create, be it financial plan or be it estate plans, need a periodic review to accommodate changes in your life. Inappropriate choice of trustees, executors, and failure to communicate child's need with
Hi, Jitendra. This is Vishnu. I think we're again losing you on audio and video. Not sure if it's a bandwidth issue, but just letting you know.
Okay.
No, it's still quite bad. I think your screen is stuck and we're not able to hear you. I think he's going to try and rejoin. Jitendra, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, let's try again. Yeah, now maybe you can. Yeah, looks better.
So you can see the screen.
Yes, we can. Yeah, we were, I think, in the second sheet of mistakes to avoid. Yeah, I think we're still having a bit of lag. So maybe, Jitendra, I think if you can disable your video and just we stay on audio for now until Q&A, maybe that will free up some bandwidth. Thank you, Mr. Shekhar, for the recommendation. Okay, let's wait for Jitendra to join back. In the meantime, it's been a great session so far. I think every single information is so vital. If you could keep putting your questions in the chat box, as soon as we are ready for Q&A, we'll just go through those questions one after another in the interest of time and also to make it more effective.
I'll just complete maybe 2 more slides and then
yeah. Now it's better. I think just staying on audio is better, and then you can turn on your video once we are done with the session.
Okay, fair enough. I'll just complete my so mistakes we were talking about. Estate documents created but not reviewed for a long time. Inappropriate choices of trustees and executors. Failures to communicate child needs with key people. Failure to plan for adequate funding of the trust. So create those financial plan, estate plan, have your dream team you require to complete your comprehensive planning. Share your plan with other people, family members, stakeholders, but ensure that you take care of special you. Now, there are some resources we have built on our website, which you can access. So there is an e-course for letter of intent. You can do a self-assessment. There are recordings available. We run a 2-minute video tip every Friday. We have recently launched a special need calculator. So the calculation I have shown you, we have launched a calculator where you can put the numbers and get the figures. And we run a complimentary 45-minute session to help families understand the easy way of the financial planning, not this as it assumed it's a complex exercise. How we are helping families? So we have financial planning services, plus we have estate planning services. So we are ensuring that we can provide the comprehensive bouquet of both financial and legal aspects. In financial planning, we have built this life plan system where we have built 6 elements of life planning: life care plan, child transition plan, the special needs plan, the legal plan, the benefit plan, and the communication plan. Through this life plan system, we are creating the comprehensive plan for the families, the roadmap which they require to address concerns and to plan for their family future. Okay, so now we can take question and answers.
All right, thank you so much. So I've switched on my video. So I'm going to go through a bunch of questions that has come up in chat, and then we can probably open up. And I think some of these questions might be common across a lot of us. So I think there are a couple of questions on insurance. I think there's one which is there any health insurance for an intellectual child? And also, what are the term insurances available in the market today?
Okay. So what is the actual disability? If you can let me know what is the disability, identify in the disability certificate, then I can, give you some indication what are the type of health insurance available.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's also a related question where
Good afternoon, sir.
analysis of between Star Insurance, Religare, United India,
Yes.
Nirmaya, to understand which is best to go for, say, an autism-related policy. So I think it depends on the
See, what happens is
diagnosis, right?
what happens is all the insurance products will have certain features which you won't find in other insurance companies. Okay, now with respect to autism, Star, Religare, these run up a specific product. They have launched a specific policy itself, but they have their own limitations. So Star Health is not available beyond 25 years age of child. Religare is available. Okay, but there is a waiting period in Religare policy. So that way you will find certain limitations in all these policies. Okay, you need to analyze it and see what, which one is the most suitable. So we see quite a few families have taken up Religare, quite a few families have taken up Star Health, and quite a few families have taken up, United India and other companies. So you need to really analyze.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. There's also a very interesting question which says by Balasundaram Atreya, what is the right point of time during the lifetime of parents to create the beneficiary trust for their special needs child? Is it possible to create a will with an inbuilt trust? Or does the trust get created only upon the demise of an earning parent? So that this ensures tax and other compliances are avoided till the time when the trust is actually needed.
Okay. Okay, I'll just answer the Roderick question. So an analysis between these three companies. So we are doing that analysis. So very soon we will come out with the analysis, between the different products which are available, health insurance products for autism. So we are doing that analysis. Very soon we'll come out with that. Right point of time to create the beneficiary trust. I think, what happens is that there is no right time to it. But when you look at the life stage, okay, probably once the child moves to a teenage age, okay, that's where parents have an idea of somewhat how is going to be the life stage of the child in the future. During minority, parents, are, really occupied with, with the diagnosis, the counseling, the intervention. So they do not really think of, the trust and any other aspect. But trust is a provision you are creating, and the moment you come to know that a trust has to be created, to my mind the trust should be formed. Okay, you not need to fund the trust today. You can fund it regularly, you can fund it later year of life, you can fund it through will also, that can be done, but the provision should be created today. Okay, so I don't think there is a timeline to it when it should be created. As I said, the moment you come to know that this provision will help my child future after my lifetime, that provision needs to be created.
Okay, and I think there's also a question about trust from Mr. Shekhar as to, and I think you answered this partly, what time should we create a trust?
Okay. And yes. So there is
also about the taxation.
Yeah, so there is a question of inbuilt trust in the will. Yes, you can create a testamentary trust. So that you can create. So if you do not want to create a trust in your lifetime, you can create the trust in the will. So the trust will be formed at the execution of your will, and it will be formed by the executor. But we generally advise avoid that, because what happens is that with respect to will, it can go for a probate, it can challenge in the court, and if if it goes in the court for any either probate or challenge, then the process can get stuck up or can get delayed. What happens during that time? When you create a living trust, a trust in your lifetime, the trust continues the child care even during those life stages also. So testamentary trust you can create, but we generally advise that you create a living trust.
Okay. There's also a question about whether a disability certificate is mandatory to get any special health insurance for a special child. Or I think bigger question is, what are the requirements to get a special health insurance for a child?
Okay, but disability certificate, so the company won't, ask you for a disability certificate. What happens is that company generally in any health insurance form, you have to declare, okay, you have to declare that your child has autism. It is generally declared in the pre-existing illness format. So company have their questionnaires where you have to declare if there any pre-existing illness with respect to any members. When you fill that, the company may ask you for additional documents. Okay. So with respect to that, disability certificate can be asked, or the company based on declaration can issue the health policy. But I would advise that whenever you are applying for health insurance, or any process for any kind of provision for special child, you should have a disability certificate. It may be asked.
Okay, thank you. And I think there's also some very important input from Balachandra Mathreya. Again, the last point, Jitendra, if you can just go through it and maybe comment.
Okay, yes.
I think it's more an input and comment than a question, but yeah, it's very relevant to our DADS group here.
Okay. Specific context of parents who are close to retirement, 55, 60 years, with child at 25, 30 years, have reasonably put together retirement funds, do not have debt, have identified the center or community where they will live, have completed all formalities related to disability certificate, UIDAD, etc. I think the question earlier you asked about the beneficiary trust. I think yes, if this has been done, it's the time you create the trust now. The trust should be
Jitendra, can I
created.
come in? I think
Yeah,
I
yeah,
will.
yeah,
you're right.
please.
Sure,
With
sure.
your permission.
Yeah,
Vishnu.
please.
Sure, please. Please.
So Jitendra, you clearly made it that don't create a testamentary trust, do a living trust. So the point is well taken. And like all of us, the heebie-jeebies we have is you form another body, you have to worry about taxation, returns, compliances, etc. And filing your own return is hard enough for us. And
Yeah.
then now we have one more entity to worry about.
Yeah.
So in practical terms, you also said that do not vest funds inside the trust as of now, because it gets taxable. There can be multiple or cascading taxation. So is it possible in this context? So what you're reading now as a specific context,
Okay.
we have a whole bunch of parents reasonably in this context.
Yeah.
What should we do today? Should we create a living trust? And if yes, how do we do it without the pain of compliances?
Okay. See, with respect to funding of the trust, I mentioned that funding, you don't have to fund the trust today. You can fund as per your requirement, as per your wish. So you can fund with partial money today, you can fund with partial money later, or you can fund it up to a certain requirement and let the funds come through will. So these are the options for funding the trust. Okay. So with respect to taxation, now the funding of the taxation of the trust depends on the structure you create. If it's a specific trust, generally it is taxed at the beneficiary income tax rate. So whatever is your child income tax rate calculated as an individual, on that rate, that income of the trust is going to be taxed. So whether it 10%, 20%, 30%, so whatever rate comes out, it is going to be taxed at the same level. The taxation doesn't change. Okay, the taxation remains for the life. So that's why I said that trust should be created today. With respect to funding, I mean, if you have reached toward this age, probably you will fund it with more money, and also you can decide to fund it, through your will also. That you can let the properties come in through the will, or the most part of your corpus you can let it come through will. So the funding strategies can be planned.
Okay, there is no clubbing provisions.
No clubbing provision. See, if your child is already an adult, so there is not going to be any clubbing provision. You can file his income tax return like an individual. So suppose if the assets are not in the trust, the assets in the name of the child. So you are going to create a separate tax file. He is an individual, he is an adult. So whatever income he has is going to be his income, and you will file his income tax returns as a representative assessee. Okay. Similarly, the trust income is going to be his income. So it is going to be his income tax rate.
Got it. So when I create an individual beneficiary trust in his name and I assign a certain amount of assets into the trust, and the trust has income, investment yields, etc. So the trust pays tax and the trust has to file returns.
So in actual, the trust does not pay tax. The tax is paid by the beneficiary only. The tax is paid by your child only. Okay. It is only assessed at the trust level.
Fair enough. Okay, I'll park it there now, Jitendra. So, that is the kind of specific advice some of us parents who
Yes.
fit that context I described kind of land into.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's actually a very good question. In fact, just my personal experience, I have a cousin who's 61 years old. Well, she is 61 years old, and she has cerebral palsy right from birth. And in her case, that the taxation is at whatever she comes under. So it's not about the trust, whatever the trust makes. It's she's disabled and she's a woman. So whatever she comes under is what the taxation is about.
One
Anyway,
thing
just
that
wanted
might
to-
aspect the issue also, Vishnu, is that if you have a UDID card, there may be some tax benefits. We have to
Yeah,
explore that.
probably.
Okay, I'll clear that in the estate planning.
Sure, sir.
Yes, we have a session just for that. I know there's a lot of questions.
From
I think
the
there's
just to give you some indication in the legal arrangement, a trust is a pass-through entity. Trust does not have any income. Trust does not have any income tax rate. It does not have any benefits. Okay, whatever income is there is of the individual. Trust does not enjoy, though the income tax rate is of individual. The assets in the trust does not enjoy the income tax benefit which is available to individual. So you won't have Section 80 DD benefit or other benefit on the trust assets. Okay, because though those benefits are available either to individual or to HUF.
But you still have to get a PAN number for the trust.
Yes, surely,
Of course,
surely
of
you
course.
have to.
allowed to do
Right,
it.
thank you.
Okay, there's another, I think, very basic but very important question from Raghavendra, who says his son is 14 years old. He wants to open a bank account for him with a permanent legal guardianship. Right? How does one go about it?
So his son is 14 years. You don't need a legal guardianship at this stage. In the eyes of law, you are a natural guardian till the child is 18 years of age. You just go and open a minor account. The moment child turns 18 years of age, then you will have to convert that account into an account with permanent guardianship.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so any other questions? I think we have just exceeded the time we had budgeted for this. So two things, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask now. I think there's one question from Suresh and one from Sudipta. Let's go with Suresh first and then with Sudipta, if it's okay.
Yeah, could we have a session on formation some other time?
Session on what, sir, again?
Trust formation, how to form a trust. And
oh, yeah, so we're going to have a follow-on session which is going to talk about estate planning and legal. So we'll let you know when that is scheduled.
Okay, right. And can I ask Mr. Balasundaram to give me his number? I can also give my number here.
Yeah, you can either share on the Dads Club if you're part of the WhatsApp group, or you can use the chat window here to connect. Mr. Sudipta, you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, I'm new in this group, and thanks a lot, Mr. Solanki, for such a wonderful exposition of whatever needs to be done. And I just have one question. You said the child turns 18 and you need to have a guardian for his bank account. My
Yes.
child is 20 now, and it's a joint account with his mother. Is there any problem with that legally, or he can
Yes.
just continue?
Yes, legally it's a problem because if you have a joint account, now it means your child is able to operate the account. He's sign on the account. He can sign checks, because even in a joint account, everything is of the first joint account holder. Okay, whether it's income tax, or whether any other. So in a joint account, then your child will be the signing authority. Your child will be the decision maker for his account. Tomorrow, the mother cannot come and take a decision on his bank account, on his money lying in bank account. For that, you need to have a bank account under guardianship. Then only you can take a decision on his behalf. So if you open a joint account, it means he is free to take his decisions. You won't be allowed to take a decision on his behalf.
I understand. Okay. Thank you. So I need to learn about how to become a guardian, but that I think is enough for another day.
Can
Maybe
I
your
come in
book
there,
has it, I
Jitendra?
don't
I
know.
just want to share a personal bit of experience. Mr. Maitri,
Yeah,
this might be
yeah.
relevant to you.
Yeah,
I have a I opened a bank account for my son when he was a minor.
yeah,
That was way back. Now, once he became a major, the account became inoperative. I had to produce the UDID and the disability certificate. So ICICI Bank took cognizance of that. And I've also got the legal guardian, the Form B in his name. So they took all these documents and they have continued the bank account as an operative bank account now, but I operate as the guardian, as the
Yes.
lawful guardian under my Form B.
yes,
So
yes,
there's a DC, there's a disability certificate, the UDID, which I just got,
yes,
and the Form B, which is obtained through the local level committee.
yes,
These three documents are essential. You can have a bank account for your son as his guardian under this arrangement.
yes,
Thank
yes.
you
it-
so much.
It is there from RBI guidelines very well.
Correct, sir.
All to the banks. Okay, you can open a bank account under guardianship for your adult child. Okay, the bank has to open it, right? And
But
you can
Jitendra,
take
one
decision.
problem is many
Yeah.
of these banking staff at the branch level know squat about it.
I
They
do
will
agree.
misguide you.
I
They
do
will,
agree.
they will tell you it's not possible.
I do agree. What they will do is they will take a thumb impression of your son and they will
Huh.
open a bank account, which is not right. I do agree. Bank staff is not there, but I think if you go to a manager level or
I had to reach
not in-
ICICI in Mumbai. I had to talk to the higher ups there to kind of make
I
a
do
call
agree,
and say
sir.
what nonsense.
These are the challenges we face in the banking system.
True, sir.
Yeah, I think
So,
the big
Sudipta ji, it's
challenge
important.
of
First of all, bank account is secondary. Please finish your disability certificate. Please finish your UDID. And please finish your legal guardianship, your Form B. Those three are critical for anything, insurance, banking, and anything else you might want to do tomorrow.
I think the challenge with banks is also about awareness at the entry level.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Which is why I think it's important to, given the information that we know now, and we're going to learn going into the next few sessions, it's important also if they push back to go back and tell them, no, this is exactly how it is. Please check with, your higher ups. That provision is there. Good, great, thank you. That's very insightful questions.
And Vishnu,
So,
just to add, the one
yeah.
good reason why I needed a bank account for him is from the time that his autism was discovered, all along, there are family members who may want to gift some money. Anything from $1,000 to 10,000 to. So
Yes.
here is my brother or my cousin who comes and says, listen, whatever else you do, here is something I want to leave for Akshay. So I'm using that bank as a pooling account to the
Yes.
extent that gifts are tax exempt because of the provisions of the Act and
Correct.
relatives, I let it go. But for the rest of it, I've got him a PAN number, I file returns.
No, look, having a bank account, I think at this level is essential for various things, right? I think it's probably the starting point for a lot of things.
Absolutely.
So great, sounds good. Thank you so much. I think what we're going to do is with Mr. Solanki's permission, we've actually recorded this whole session, given how important it is.
Great.
We're going to share this with all of you maybe in the next 1 to 2 days, so that all of you can go review it again. You can go to specific parts where you would like to listen to him again. You can visit Q&A again, right? And then we'll have a follow-on session and we'll figure out what's the best day to do it, to talk about estate planning and the legal aspects, where some of your follow-on questions from this session can also be answered, right? So first of all, Jitendra, thank you so much for your time. This has been
Thank you.
enlightening even for me at so many levels. And I'm sure for all the dads here, there's a lot of information we can take back. And we look forward to your next session. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks everybody for attending.
Thank you.
I know it's a Sunday evening, so enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll see you again soon in our next session.
Thank you. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.